What's the most disgusting thing you have seen done in school? NSFW. Wood shop in 8th grade. We were making wooden boxes. My friend had the most repulsive farts that day and he ripped a huge fart into his box and closed it real quick. He then yelled to the temporary shop teacher, "Hey, this wood smells funny," and the shop teacher grabs the box, opens it directly into his nose. It was the harshest direct hit I've ever witnessed. The teacher staggered and started gagging and had to leave the room. That would be what I did. Hid my pants in kindergarten and didn't want to tell any teachers about it because the kids would make fun of me if they found out. So I waddled to the bathroom and dropped my pants underwear. Tighty whities. After which I started rapidly scooping the id out of my pants with my hands and trying to fling it into the toilet. Most of it got on my pants and the stall walls. The smell got to me and I ended up vomiting repeatedly onto the floor, my hands, and my pants. So this ordeal ends with me walking to the office, crying, covered in fesses and vomit, and being forced to wait outside because I smelled so bad. My mother eventually came and picked me up, and a good portion of the kids found out about it anyway. Food fight. Ran out of food. Kid fills a glass Snapple bottle with his own urine. Hucks it. He's now a physicist at University of Edinburgh. Wrestling tourney. I was trying to turn this fat kid with a gut wrench and he hit on me. Yellowish liquid that looked and smelled like chicken broth. Freshman year of high school. I catch wind of a giant turd in the main bathroom. Yeah, okay. Big deal. Soon after, lunch hits and as I pass the bathroom I see all this traffic and people laughing and talking about it. Alright, I might as well check it out. By then a small crowd has formed around the stall and kids are taking pictures. Apparently this kid was constipated for 6 days or something. This thing was as thick as my forearm and coming out of the toilet bowl because it was so ducking long. It must have been one solid piece 2 feet long. People said he had to stand up during the end of the delivery of this monster because it had nowhere else to go. Even our tight-ass disciplinarian didn't care about the cell phones and was just as blown away by it. In the end the poor janitor had to dispose of it by manually cutting it into pieces and putting it into a trash bag. I didn't eat lunch that day, but I witnessed the birth of a legend. My 9th grade Spanish teacher didn't let people go to the bathroom under any circumstances even though we had a 4-minute passing period and 5 bathrooms in the whole school, 1,000 plus kids, and there were always lines out the door. One kid obviously had to go but the teacher wouldn't let him. He held it for like half an hour after asking, clearly super uncomfortable. Then he told her he'd pee in the class if she didn't let him go. She should have listened. In 3rd grade, there was a kid trying to impress this very pretty girl. He would always sit beside her while the teacher read to the class. One day the kid felt sick and he kept asking the teacher if he could call his parents and go home. The teacher insisted the kid wait till recess so she could walk him to the office. So halfway through reading time, the kid feels like throwing up and decides to get up and run to the garbage bin. However, in the process of getting up, he barfed all over the pretty girl beside him. Some went on her back, some on her hair, and some of it on the kid's own clothes. It was the kid. We were watching a movie during class and it was dark. So this girl gets the idea to start touching herself during the movie. A few people notice and giggle, but nobody says anything. Then she decides it's a good idea to take the white oat from her desk and shove it down her pants. Somebody near her whispered, "Ashley, what the duck?" And she ran out of the room crying, white oat in hand. I'm still not sure if she ever saw the ending of a Mustard. One time in social studies class we were debating gay marriage and the majority of the class agreed it should be legal to have gay marriage. The ones who didn't agree were totally respectful about. Then out of nowhere the one intolerant jackass jock kid stands up and yells, "That's duckine disgusting, 2 faggots being able to marry, why don't we just duck a horse," or something on those lines. The teacher did nothing. Nothing at all. Didn't even acknowledge it. That kid got the it beat out of him later. I have seen some kid masturbating in the showers. He was just stroking it like nobody's business. Everyone saw but nobody made a remark toward it. I remember someone asking later why he was doing it. His response? "I was ducking horny. What else was I supposed to do?" One girl was giving a guy a blowjob under the desk during my high school health ed. Substitutes are just clueless. But it was dark and we were watching a video on the projector. Some kid whacked off in class, then threw his jizz on some guy's back without him knowing. I didn't really know how to tell him. I heard a sneeze in my history class. I didn't think much about it, but then I heard slurping. So I turn around and there is this guy with a handful of his own snot just slurping away like it was some kind of soup. He seemed to enjoy it, but I almost puked. My friend in college told me about this one kid in his class freshman year cut a hole in his hooded sweatshirt and stuck his D into the hole. It was a hoodie without a zipper, so he would just jack it whenever. One time, an attractive girl had to be in his group, so when she sat down next to him, he put his hands in the hoodie pocket and started jacking it. He moved away his senior year, but came back to town for some unknown reason. He started working at one of the pizza places. Suffice to say, my friend never bought pizza from that store again. Edit. He wore that ducking sweatshirt every day for almost 4 years. Last day of school in grade 6, we were sent to clean out our lockers for the summer. For most kids, it was notebooks, pens, lost homework, nothing too crazy. There was one kid though, always being a bigot disturber, had left a frozen lunch in his locker for 2-5 months. Instead of being a normal human being and throwing it out, he microwaves it. So after putting it in for 2-3 minutes he opens it up. It was steaming green mold. I still gag thinking about it a decade later. The smell was disgusting. I didn't hear about this until a while after it happened, but this guy baked pastries for his French class that has his own cum in them, and pretty much everyone in the class had one, including the teacher. One time in middle school, I had to spit a massive phlegm nugget on the bus ride home. I had a window seat in the middle of the bus, so I just figured I'd lean my head out the window and spit the loogie. I didn't realize that the girl sitting behind me had her window open as well. I spat that snot wad out my window, and it whipped straight back into Janie's face. I knew immediately what had happened because several people had gasped. The damage covered area from her upper cheek down to her chin. I've never seen someone so horrified in their life. I got a pretty good laugh out of it, still feel bad though. I had a student with terrible acne who would pick the scabs from his face and eat them. 9 hours bus trip to another state for a football game. One of the players on my team must have drank close to 6 bottles of empty dew and had to take a piss. We gave him a liter bottle to piss in and he does. The problem is he filled it up quicker than we could find another empty bottle, so he ended up pissing all over the bus floor. He must have had a very vitamin-rich diet since it was the nastiest smelling piss I've ever encountered at the time. We ended up making it worse by spraying Axe all over the puddle to cover up the smell. The pee bottle also stayed on the school bus for another 3 games before a coach found it. We blamed it on the volleyball girls. I saw a guy stand on a toilet then use the force of his stream to open the stall door. I've seen a dozen or so older, more developed girls completely encircle and harass this one kid who had a speech impediment and wasn't very popular. It was a horrible display of why humans are awful. A girl ended up miscarrying hemorrhaging in the middle of class. I think it had started before class, but she stood up, and there was blood to her knees. Her jeans were soaked. I was the one closest to the door, and she started stumbling toward the door. I didn't know what was happening, so I stood up to help her, but I guess she had touched the blood, and she grabbed my arm. My arm ended up bloody. She ended up passing out. My arm and knees, from kneeling to check pulse breathing, ended up covered in blood. I had no idea someone could lose so much blood from a miscarriage. She ended up losing her uterus along with her baby at the age of 16. She almost died. Once had a kid have a 6 on the bus on the way to school. He asked if anybody else was getting some pussy. He was in 8th grade, and somebody once hit in a urinal. Guy never got caught. Some kid sitting in the back of class started staring at this chick and masturbating. Everyone found out and the parents were notified about the incident. There's a lot of it in this thread. When I was in middle school I had this massive crush on a boy who had zero interest in me. One day I was walking along, minding my own business, when he and 2 of his friends walk up very close behind me. Socially awkward as I was, I didn't say anything. I was just so excited that he was walking close to me. Then very quickly they run past me laughing like mad. A while later I reach into the small front pocket of my book bag to get my one and only Lisa Frank pencil. Only Lisa Frank thing I ever owned since we were so damn poor. And there's this huge, nasty green ludgy, thick, chunky, and it had completely ruined all of the things I had in that pocket and was dripping off of my fingers. I stopped crushing on him that day. Edit. Thanks for the kind and hilarious replies, everyone. This didn't scar me forever. I simply moved on. But I was really happy when I saw through Facebook that he became extremely unattractive. In school we had this one couple in a corner surrounded by a group of other kids. Apparently he was eating her out right there in the middle of the cafeteria. But I guess she didn't tell him. Or didn't know she was on the ragged out bloody beard. Oh so bloody. My buddies would show up to school for basketball practice an hour or so before school. They came up with this plan where they wouldn't dig the night before. So they would all go across the school and it in all the urinals. This happened about once a week. After a wrestling meet our entire team made what is called it lasagna. Lasagna is where the first person poops and wipes but does not flush. The second person does the same and so on and so on. My wrestling coach had walked into the locker room and heard one of us say it lasagna and had to see. He let out a short, quick laugh and then tried to flush the toilet. Horrible idea. He then told us to get dressed and on the bus back home before the water seeped everywhere. Hands down funniest and most disgusting thing I've ever seen. I didn't see it. Thank God. But someone I go to school with once it pissed in someone's backpack. Oddly enough. He's actually a pretty cool guy most of the time. One day in my sophomore English class my teacher was lecturing as usual when some kid gets up and goes to sharpen his pencil. I thought nothing of it until about 2 minutes later when I smell it. It spread through the class pretty fast and someone finally said, "Oh God, look at the pencil sharpener." There was a pile of it right next to it and it on the handle. The kid that did it didn't stay in that school much longer. In 7th grade I caught a guy ducking a stromboli in the bathroom. I had to go to the washroom. Ended up walking in on a dude ducking a fat chick's rolls. That's right, not her V. Her stomach rolls. Like a titty duck. But with her stomach. I laughed and threw up in my mouth a little. When I was in elementary school I used to hate going to the bathroom in school. So I would try and hold it until I got home. Well one day I had to drop a major deuce and was just sitting most of the day in order to hold it until I made it home. Well on my way out of the building my it apparently didn't feel like making the 5-minute bus ride home so I accidentally pinched one off too soon. And this turd straight dropped through my boxers and out of the bottom of my shorts and ricocheted off of the back of my shoe and went flying in the air. I look back and I see a teacher staring at me with her jaw dropped as my it is flying down and lands right by her shoe. I immediately turn and sprint to my bus. Seeing her in the hallways afterwards was incredibly awkward. Not the most disgusting thing on here but I'm willing to bet she was grossed out. I had a class in a huge room, where the chairs and desk were only in the front half of it, and we were all taking a test. Everyone was silent, but all of a sudden we hear a loud moan coming from the back of the classroom. Apparently 2 kids had finished their test early, because they were sitting all the way in the back. And the guy was fingering the girl, in plain sight. I guess they just thought no one would look back there, but the geary couldn't hold that moan in. I played football. Most of the guys I played with were like brothers to me. We were in the cafeteria one day when the Jewish guy on the team came and sat with us. One guy picked up his sandwich. Another guy picked up his apple. Those pricks then pulled the bacon out of their own sandwiches and rubbed the bacon on every millimeter of the guy's food. I felt pretty bad for the dude. I'd have bought him new food if I had more lunch money. Someone handcuffed a kid to the showers in the locker room. No one ever used the showers, so he wasn't found until the next day when classes came in. He was not naked, but he was very cold. And I'm pretty sure he didn't fall asleep considering the water was hitting him the whole time. Sitting in middle school English class. Some kids sitting on the ground around the teacher listening to her read some book. I hear some people start whispering and then I look down to see this girl. I think she had some sort of mental disorder, was sitting Indian style with her hand down her pants. I could see her fingers working pretty rapidly and apparently so did the teacher because she got up and took her to the office or something. Never will I forget that day. Oh, I have another one. I have a friend who has leukemia. She goes back home every Friday for chemo. Her professor takes points off of her grade 4 attendance even though he knows her reason for missing class. In middle school we had to dissect a pig fetus. Somehow, a kid stole the fetus and smeared it and pig organs all over the bathroom, paying special attention to the mirrors. It was the most horrifying scene I have ever stumbled upon. He never got caught either. There used to be a kid who masturbated in my class, under his desk. We could all see, and the teacher was too weirded out to call him out on it. This went on for almost 3 years before someone actually called him out on it, and he stopped. Needless to say, no one touched anything after he touched it. Edit. His name was Kevin. Okay, lol. Edit 2. Seems like my whole class might be on Reddit. Lol. The butt crack of my middle-aged female biology teacher. Gag. When I was 11 our school took us on a field trip to a rural school in Peru. I witnessed a group of children ages 8-10 rip of the head of a live pigeon who couldn't fly and throw it amongst them.